This is the pattern. Use scraps of fabric from woven cotton fabric, velour, and some stretchy tricot and filling. You will also need cardboard paper. This is the velour, and you have right sides together, and I am drawing a line all the way around with a pen that shows in fabric. Put a mark where you're not supposed to sew, and sew around with a zigzag seam. Once you have sewn around, you can cut it out. It's easy if you have a lot of pins in the fabric when you sew. You can cut with 1/2 centimeter of seam allowance, and then you cut in the seam allowance in the curved seams. You should make the 2 ears and 1 head in this fabric. If you want some decorations in the ears, you can make from another fabric a smaller piece of fabric, and then you lay it on the inside of the ears. As you can see, I have turned the right sides out. And then you pin so you can sew around this piece. This time I'm going to sew with a very thick zigzag seam. Now you can cut close to your zigzag seam. Make sure that you have your scissors in between these 2 fabrics. I have filled the top of the ear with a lot of filling, so it's quite hard. This is going to be the back side of the head. Cut it in double fabric and add 1 centimeter in seam allowance. Mark the top and the bottom. Now I've turned the right sides out on the head, and I have decided where I want the ears placed. So I measure from the top, so I get them on the same length from the top. And I start by pinning them right sides together. And I'm also going to add some folds on the ears. Once you have pinned them in place, you might want to sew them so you don't have to have all pins in when you're going to sew them together with the back piece. Pin the head right sides together towards the back piece. You should try to match up the tops and the bottom seam. So you're kind of turning everything inside of the head and pinning it towards the back piece. And remember that the back piece has 2 pieces of fabrics that are laying together, and now you're pinning the head in place. Sew around the head but this time you can sew with a straight stitch. You should leave an opening at the bottom so you can insert some cardboard paper. Turn the right sides out and cut a piece of cardboard in the same size as the back piece. Then you insert the cardboard in between the fabrics in the back piece. And now you can fill the head with filling. I noticed that my ears were too big and I wanted them to stand out a bit more, so I opened up on the back side on the ears and I cut a cardboard to firm up the inner ear. And then I just close the hole with a slip stitch. This is when you sew from one side to another. Sew with a couple of millimeters and then you just jump to the other side and sew in the fold. I close the opening on the underside of the head in the same way. If you sew with embroidery thread instead of sewing thread, it will hold a little bit better. The tusks is sewn in white velour and I filled them. And then I place them where I want them and I sew with a slip stitch all the way around. All the seam allowances should be turned on the inside. And then I have just glued some eyes where I want them to be, and I have added a crown. And then your elephant is finished.